Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. It's great to have you back this week in the Lion's Den. Today, I'm going to speak about how to enter a new environment as a leader. How we do anything is how we do everything. And this is one time when leaders need to get it right. What is the most important thing for a leader to do when entering a new environment? Well, today on the Weekly Roar, I'm going to talk all about it. But before we jump into that, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Greg Storch. I'm the owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and the founder of a worldwide barter coaching program called The Helping Hand. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Oh, and as a friendly reminder, you can find all of my video resources on my website at lion-enterprise.com. Just look for the Lion's Pride Library and you can check them all out. Okay, everyone, let's talk about a leader's trust factor. Now, some of you watching today have heard the John C. Maxwell quote that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. But in order to be able to influence others in a positive way, trust has to be established and present. Trust, in my humble opinion, is the very cornerstone of leadership. Think about it. People don't blindly follow leaders just because leaders tell them to follow. Even in the dire cases of negative influence, like with the Jonestown Massacre in 1978, where Jim Jones led more than 900 of his followers into a mass suicide. Those who died that day were not blindly following. Jim Jones had developed trust with them, and that's why they followed him. Now, if I don't trust you because I don't think you know what you're doing, then you're going to have a hard time getting me to follow you. As a matter of fact, it's not going to happen. And this is why one of the most important things a leader must do when entering a new environment is to establish trust with those they lead. A cornerstone is the first stone that is laid in the construction of a building. It's essential because it unites the walls of the building at an intersection. Well, leadership is based on relationships, and it's an essential building block in any relationship. The cornerstone is trust. Trust is like the gorilla glue that holds an organization together, and leaders are responsible for building it block by block. Now, when trust is present, it cements relationships by allowing people to live and work together. It makes them feel safe and it provides them with a sense of belonging. A quote from Stephen Covey back in 1992 stated, "Trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundation principle that holds all relationships. When the trust account is high, communication is easy, instant, and effective." Trust in a leader allows organizations and communities to grow and mature, even flourish. But when trust isn't present, it can result in the fragmentation of the group, the company, or even the community. That's why trust is a critical factor to have when it comes to not only leadership, but also with our family, our friends, and our coworkers. This is why I wanted to talk about trust today for new leaders who are entering a new environment. It can be overwhelming and leaving new leaders wondering, where do I start? There's so many things that new leaders have to consider, but I'll tell you that focusing on building trust with your followers is the most important. So, what exactly is trust? Trust is kind of hard to define, but we do know when it's lost, right? I've seen one definition that trust is feeling safe when vulnerable. That feeling of vulnerability creeps in when we feel dependent on someone else, like a leader or a friend or a family member. Trust is the thing that helps us manage the anxiety that comes from being vulnerable. I actually came across a mathematical formula for trust while I was preparing for a leadership brief a couple of years ago, and I really like it a lot. In their book, The Trusted Leader, authors Robert Galford and Ann Siebel-Drapo developed this trust formula, so I want to share it with you today. Now, the formula is this: trustworthiness equals the sum of credibility, reliability, and intimacy divided by self-orientation. Now, let's talk about those terms to understand this equation just a little bit better. Now, credibility are a leader's words that help them become credible by being upfront and honest about their limitations. If you tell people you're something you're not, you'll eventually fail and lose their trust. Then reliability, that comes from a leader's actions. Leaders are perceived as being reliable when there's consistency and dependability in their actions. So straight away, a leader's words and actions are key ingredients when establishing trust. Now, they also added intimacy here. Intimacy in the way of emotions. And that's why you're hearing a lot about the importance for leaders to have a high EQ or emotional quotient. They weren't speaking about intimacy as in revealing personal details, but making the business of the organization personal and also understanding the sensitivities of other people. Now you add those three factors together and it gets divided by self-orientation. Now, what is self-orientation? Self-orientation in this case is another way of talking about a leader's motives. It's the degree to which a leader focuses on their own concerns when they interact with other people. You know, when we divide something, we break it up into smaller pieces. So the higher your self-orientation is, meaning the more you focus on others before yourself, the stronger or higher the solution for the trust equation becomes. Now, even though trust is oftentimes related to leadership, it's not a given. To be effective, a leader has to earn the trust of his or her followers if they want to have them participate and have any kind of allegiance whatsoever. Leadership is about relationships, and any successful relationship, whether it's a leader to follower, coach to client, or the relationship between spouses, siblings, or friends, relies on a level of trust that has to be earned. But trust is a slippery slope because trust is something that can take years to gain and minutes to lose. The second someone feels betrayed, we've gone back to ground zero and we'll be lucky to restore trust at all. When members of your team or people who you have relationships with lose trust in you, it takes a lot of work to restore it. People aren't quick to reinvest in a relationship where trust has been broken. Most of the time, they move on. Breaking trust with someone is a sure way to lose followers. As a new leader coming into a team or department or a new organization altogether, or even into a family, the biggest challenge is how to get people to follow you. See, this isn't just about corporate leadership. This can be about self-leadership, or you can be the leader of your family. What about that parent who remarries into a new family and is facing building trust with their new spouse and their children? It's the same thing. So don't worry if you aren't in a corporate setting, because what I'm talking about today, about building trust, it applies everywhere. I'm just talking about it in the context of a new leader coming into a new environment. So the more someone trusts a leader, a parent, a friend, the greater the likelihood that they'll cooperate, share information, and work effectively together. So trust helps organizations and communities and families and even friendships to run smoothly. It increases positivity in those relationships, and that ultimately results in improving processes and driving individual and team performance. Now, that's how new leaders in new environments can become successful. Get to work immediately on establishing trust. Now, usually when we think about someone as being trustworthy, we think of someone who does what they say they're going to do. They walk the walk and talk the talk, right? But in leadership, trust means much more than that simple equation. For leaders, trust really is like a three-legged stool. Now, those three legs we sit on are ability, integrity, and benevolence. Our disposition to do good or be kind to others. In thinking about a leader, ability is the factor of whether that leader knows what they are doing, can lead the team in a good direction, and with the right effort, can help them succeed. You may not like or get along with that person, but if you want to move the needle on a project, you trust that this is the person to do it. So ability trust is that first leg on our stool. Okay, so when followers trust that a leader has sound moral and ethical principles, they're fair, and they treat others in predictable and unbiased ways and are reliable, there's integrity trust. And that includes things like being fair, being consistent, and making good on our promises. So integrity trust is the second leg on that stool. Now, the third type of trust is based on emotional ties between the leader and the employee in a relationship that results from the feeling that their leader has everyone's best interest at heart and cares about them beyond their role as just an employee. Leaders high in benevolence trust are seen as wanting to do good for their employees apart from any profit motive or selfish motive to have the team perform well. So benevolence trust includes things like loyalty, openness, and caring. So benevolence is our third leg of our stool. Now, if you're a leader sitting on that trust stool and one of the legs breaks because you aren't paying attention to it, the stool isn't being properly maintained. So the wood rots and the legs snap off. What do you think happens? That's right. You're going to fall off and bust your arse. I use that stool as an example because leaders have to have all three types of trust in order to be seen as trustworthy. If one of those three is missing, you can't make up the balance by leaning more on the other two legs of the stool. You have to have all three to have stability. So as a leader, you earn trust the same way anyone else does, by making a conscious effort to walk your talk, keeping your promises, and aligning your own behavior with your expectations of others. So today, I want to share 5 ways that leaders at all levels can build trust by simply aligning actions with words. So first things first, we have to recognize that building trust takes hard work. You already heard me tell you a million times that anything worth having is all uphill. Well, trust is definitely worth having, and it isn't easy to gain, but having it is worth that effort. Trust has to be earned. It's not going to be given freely to us by our followers. And that comes from a conscious effort to walk our talk, keep our promises, and align our behaviors with our values. Building trust is worth the effort because once trust is lost, it can be very difficult to recover. Now, the second thing we can do to build trust is by being honest and supportive. Even when it's difficult, tell the truth and not just what you think people want to hear. Put forth an effort to understand what employees need to know and communicate facts while being considerate of their effort and being sensitive to their feelings. Showing support and understanding for our team members, even when mistakes are made, goes a long way in building trust as a leader. All right, now the third thing that we can do to build trust is to just be quiet sometimes. Now, what I really mean is getting better at active listening. Actively listen and check for understanding by paraphrasing what you think you've just heard from them. That's a great way to check our comprehension of what was actually said. But we can't do that if we're busy jacking our jaw the whole time. When we engage in dialogue with our followers, give them the opportunity to ask questions and get answers and voice their concerns. Let them go first. Okay, now the fourth thing that we can do to build trust is to simply be consistent. Consistently doing what we say we'll do builds trust over time. It can't be something we do only occasionally. Keeping commitments, making good on our promises, those must be the essence of our behavior in all relationships, day in and day out, month after month, year after year. That's consistency. Our people should know what to expect from us, whether it's the words we speak or the actions we take. When they can rely on us, they can trust us. But catch them off guard with an inconsistent word or action, and their trust will become diminished. And that includes not only at work, but after work too. Social media allows others to see into our personal lives where that used to be a much more private matter. If there are inconsistencies in what you do at work and what you do after work, people aren't going to trust you. All right. And then the fifth and final thing that we could do to build trust is, of course, model the behavior that we want to see in others. Nothing speaks more loudly about the culture of an organization than the leader's behavior because it influences employee action and it has the potential to drive their results. Modeling the way is simply when we speak and act the way we expect our followers to speak and act. Monkey see, monkey do. If we expect people to speak respectfully to each other, we have to speak respectfully to them. Leadership behaviors and organizational values should be spelled out, and every leader should model them for their followers to emulate. At the end of the day, our behaviors will always outweigh a list of values that are just hung up on the wall. All right, so those are just 5 ways that leaders at all levels can start to build trust with their followers. Now, those aren't the only ways. There are plenty more than that, and I'm sure that you can think of a few too. I'd love to hear what you think. What are some of the things that you do to develop trust with others? Go ahead and throw your comments or ideas in the comments block, wherever the comments are. I'd love to hear what you have to say about how you're building trust with others. And I'm going to go back and read them and I'll respond to you. All right. Thanks. Okay. Listen, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If we want to increase our influence, we have to understand how we're answering 3 critical questions that our followers are always asking of us. People want to know whether you care about them, if you can help them, and if they can trust you. The question, can I trust you, is always on people's minds whenever we interact with them, especially when we meet them for the first time. So hopefully these tips that I just gave you will help you answer that question satisfactorily for those who are asking it. And that's everyone. Trust is the foundation of all successful relationships, both personal and professional. It's one of the primary forces that enables people to gel and truly work effectively together. And that's why it's so important for new leaders who are entering new environments to get started building it right away. I'm going to leave you all with this thought today. When it comes to leadership, there are no words more important than the word trust. In any organization, trust has to be developed among every member of the team if success is going to be achieved. Remember, if you're a new leader taking over a new team or joining a whole new organization, trust is the cornerstone upon which you will build success. Begin working on establishing trust immediately, and now you have some ways on how you can do that. Building trust doesn't happen by accident. It takes intentional focus and effort. It also doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and shared experiences for people to bond with one another. Trust doesn't come with a refill. Once it's gone, you probably won't get it back. And if you do, it will never be the same. Trust me on that. All right, you guys, that does it for me today. Thank you all for supporting me and joining me today in the Lion's Den. I want to welcome all of our new members that have joined over the past couple of weeks. Welcome, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed your first weekly roar in the Lion's Den. Now, if you want to keep running to the roar, then join me again next week. All you have to do is just come on back to the Lion's Den next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. All right. Thanks again for supporting me and watching the Weekly Roar today. I appreciate all of you. And until we meet again next Wednesday, remember, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.